Start the recording and then take roll.
All right, we are recording. It is Tuesday, July 9th, 2024. Welcome to the University Hill Commercial Area Management Commission meeting. I will call roll. Trent Bush,
Here.
Hal Jones,
Here.
Ted Rockwell,
Here.
Andrew Shoemaker,
Here.
Danica Powell. Not here yet. I will now hand the meeting over to the chair for procedural items.
First up is approval of the May 7th meeting minutes. Does anyone have anything that they want to address regarding the minutes?
Progress.
Then I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes as submitted. So moved. All right, second. Vote on this. That passes unanimously. We've now reached the public participation portion of our commission meeting. Is there anyone, members of the public here who'd like to be heard?
Yes.
Mary Ellis. I see your hand.
Just a moment, Mary Alice, we will allow you to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
I don't have much to say. My personal life has been a bit in turmoil since my husband died. But from what I understand, there has just been enthusiastic reaction to the changes that are happening in the wake of the Moxie Hotel's opening. And there's anticipation that the other hotel, I guess, will open in a year or two, will continue that positive impact on the neighborhood. Several residents have gone down and checked out the Moxie and the area around it, and they all say, at least from what I see, that things look cleaner, the streets look cleaner, there just seems to be a better vibe to the whole neighborhood, the commercial area. There is some concern, however, about the reduced police presence on the Hill. Apparently, they have transferred, they're concentrating more on North Boulder with some criminal activity that's occurring there. And residents on the Hill are a bit concerned that there might be a reduced police presence here, and point to the July 4th fireworks, which really were unceasing all night and for several days, actually, with no apparent attention from the police. I mean, it's notoriously difficult to catch people who are doing fireworks usually, but I know down the street from me, there was, I mean, you know, way up in the sky, all these beautiful fireworks going off. It really wouldn't have been hard to find out where they were coming from, but they continued. Interim Chief Redfern did say that they did not intend to reduce the presence on the Hill. They've got more recruits, but he also said they had to go to police academy before they could be deployed on the street. So I guess we'll just wait and see how that goes and hope for the best. But so far, it's looking good. The Lime scooter situation seems to be going smoothly now, which is a big relief. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate your comments and for raising the concern around police presence on the Hill. Sorry to hear Mary's passing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other members of the public here to speak their mission?
Not online.
No other members of the public. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything in the consent agenda they want to address as a commissioner? Okay. Move on to fund financials. Is there anything in the fund financials the commissioner wants to address?
I have some questions, but I think they'll be answered in the upcoming, you're about to make a presentation, like the budget presentation. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. We'll move on
If we
from
don't answer your questions in the budget presentation, please.
move on from consent and fund financials to a Hill Boulder update. Yes, Lauren.
I do have a small update from Danica. She went over to Penfield Tape on accident, so she should be on the way.
Excellent. Update from Jake.
Oh, hi all. It sounds
Can you hear
like
me okay?
Okay.
She just raised her hand, so Annika's here. Virtual.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Let me see. Lauren, am I able to share my screen?
You should be, I need you to co-host.
Oh, got it. Thank you. All right. I put together a presentation just because there's a couple photos I wanted to share. First thing, we had a really successful, our first regular public-facing newsletter went out last quarter, and I don't think I have updated this commission on it yet. It was super successful. It was one of our more successful emails in general, even compared to the business ones. We had a 30% open rate and a 10% click-through rate, which means they actually went in and clicked one or more links within the email. And it went out to 233 people, which is a list. I think the number's higher now, but that list has been growing over the years. And I haven't been able to send out regular public-facing newsletters. We had one a year ago, but now I'm hoping to do it quarterly, and this was a super successful first one. And on the right is on the right is what it looks like, just the beginning of it. Quick update on the Rise concert event that Roots Music Project put on last month. They're waiting on photos from their photographer, but they sent over a couple iPhone photos. They said they had 500 attendees total, with at most 250 people there. And there were some issues with the lighting above the Hill Event Street and with the power in the light poles, and we're working on remedying that before their next show, which is the end of July. And then there'll be one final one in August. There's another photo. So they had a big stage. It was really high production, a lot of people. Looked really cool. Moxie, as Mary Ellis mentioned, definitely a huge impact to the Moxie so far. I want to highlight our impact that we're seeing on our social, or on our Google search console. So since the Moxie opened, we've seen a 140% increase in our website showing up on Google search results, which is awesome. Most of that is for the Moxie, but a good amount of it isn't. And I think that part is really important to highlight, because obviously, the Moxie is great for the Moxie, but we're also seeing that the Moxie is leading to clicks on other businesses and leading other businesses on the Hill to show up higher in Google search ranking. So that's awesome. And I'm working on getting a section of our website that is just devoted to hotels. Right now, the top says like eat, shop, something, and so we're going to add one: eat, shop, stay, something like that. Last thing, the Hill Crosswalk mural. That's a project that the Office of Arts and Culture with the city has been working on with Regan's District Vitality Department. And I wanted to share this final design with you guys. Trent, this is also in your email. I think it looks awesome. We went through a bunch of iterations of it, kind of removing, there were some logos of Hill businesses on there and some text, and we decided to remove those things for safety and kind of fairness reasons. So that's why, if you can, I don't know how big it is in that room there, but the Fox marquee has some like alien text on it. So that's why, but happy to answer any questions about that. I think that's all I've got. Yep.
Does anyone have any questions for Jake and the commission?
Jake, real quick, on the lighting on the event street, is it the small light bulbs that you were mentioning? So half of that is out right now, I noticed, and is that what you're talking
It's
about?
not even strong, right? That's.
Yeah,
one
it's,
poles.
I'm not totally sure.
We're getting
Yeah.
those before the next Roots Music Project,
Oh.
like music series.
That's it's.
Cool.
Great. Yeah, Regan's on it.
And then which direction is that logo, the mural going? Is it crossing Broadway?
No,
Is
it crosses
Pleasant? Oh.
Pleasant Street.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
What is the proposed timeline for that installation?
So Jake, you can add to this, but Jake's sending it to Transportation and Mobility for their review and approval, who will then work with GoBeco. They are the company that will actually create or design the creative crosswalk on like the computer so that we can print it and do the vinyl on the street. So that process should take no longer than 2 to 4 weeks. Jake, you haven't gotten an update from transportation yet?
That's basically as much as I know, Regan. I have the final designs now. Well, I have the final design for this hill one now, and I'm waiting on the final design in the correct file format for another crosswalk mural, and we're just gonna do it all together.
A question on on the mural with the, you said the alien figures from Fox or whatever on that, yeah. You know, I sort of, I get the idea that you don't want to pick one restaurant over another, but so Fox sort of seems like that's sort of the, it's like an anchor institution on the hill. Is there a, I mean, I mean, is there a, and it's been featured in, you know, Rolling Stone and all these other, it's sort of like, it's an attractant. Is there?
Yeah, my hope was that we would have the Fox marquee with the actual Fox logo, and we'd have the Sync logo and just things that are iconically the hill. From the City of Boulder's transportation department does not allow text on the road. And so we played with trying to, you know, I mean, the Fox logo is literally just the word Fox. So we tried playing around with doing the little angel from the Sync logo instead of the word the Sync, and it just seemed like then we would end up with, we just have a mural that has something that has a little Sync, you know, trademark image on it and nothing else, because we didn't have anything for the Fox. We didn't. So, I mean, it's not ideal, but not being able to use text, I think it's nice that the marquee is still there, and I think that's the best we can do.
Yeah, it's just, it's a city policy on the road.
Or no words on the road?
It's a safety concern.
So you don't stop and read it?
I get it, people will read it in. Huh,
Yep.
okay.
Luckily, it's being installed within eyesight, it's within, like, it's right there. In both cases, the Sync and the Fox.
I mean, I actually think you want people to look at the road. All right.
I'm sorry, Regan, did you say it's not being painted now, it's being
It's gonna be.
thermal glass?
heated
Oh, it is, so that
thermal.
changed.
So that,
Oh.
yeah.
So that'll
It'll
happen
all
much
work.
faster.
It'll
I
work.
was gonna say, yeah, okay, so
I know
no,
that it's a concern.
no long-term
Once the
treatment.
vinyl gets printed, then the
Yeah.
application will.
Will it happen quick? Instead of closing tree for 2
Right.
weeks and painting,
Yeah.
And then having these vehicles driving over.
plus it'll last the rest of the day.
Yes.
Okay. That's great news.
Yeah.
Did that thing?
Any other questions for Jake? The whole update? We will continue moving through our agenda. We are to matters from staff. First up is the draft 25 budget recommendations. Very.
Elliot has been hard at work, building the 2025 budget for the entire community vitality department. Just gonna share some context with everything that we have planned and going on for 2025, and then of course, specifics as far as the UGID budget moving forward. So Elliot?
Yep, thanks, Chris. And of course, if there's anything I miss, or if you guys want to have a little bit more details on, Chris would probably be able to help us out as well. So we'll kind of start off at a high level. Today, we're just going to go through kind of the general improvement district, like those roles and responsibilities, very similar to last year's presentation that Teresa put on. And then we'll get into the budget process, what that cycle typically looks like. And then the overall department budget, our capital improvement program, UGI's specific budget and its changes. We'll have some time for feedback and questions, and we'll get into some suggested motion language that helps us kind of move this along, lets council know kind of what UCAMC thought about the budget. So the roles and responsibilities, the general improvement district, this isn't completely exclusive. This isn't everything that the general improvement district does with its funds. But this is kind of a high level of what the general improvement district, its main roles and responsibilities are. Of course, doesn't specifically say about, painting across the street, right? But it gives us some flexibility to be able to do some of those things, so this would have been included in the packet, so if you did want to reference this or have any questions about it, by all means, we can get to that. Some key accomplishments and work in progress. I thought this was really fun. This is one of my most favorite exercises of doing budget development is what have we done, right? So this year, as we talked, I think it was the beginning of this year, the Hill Merchant Association asked for some additional support. We were able to find some additional funding to be able to expand that support. We've been able to kind of basically secure that as an ongoing type thing. There was an ordinance change there that we had to kind of improve those land use standards that went through in terms of like how we regulate serving of alcohol, kind of expand some of those programs on the Hill. We had the 100th anniversary of the sink, which was, that was a big topic throughout the entire city, not just for UCAMC, as it's such a big staple. The final ULI TAP report, we finally pulled in and are exploring some of those options. And we'll talk a little bit about 14th Street and its main asset for UCAMC here in a little bit. And something that actually just came up as I was making this presentation, the 29% reduction in crime rate. So I know we just heard from Mary Ellis about the police presence. So hopefully we continue to see that reduction in crime. And as we work with our partners in PD.
So
Go
I
ahead.
might add a couple of the.
Yes.
The Moxie Hotel opening is huge for us. And we've been able to go through and plant some trees that had died. We worked with forestry department to get some new trees and improve tree grades in where possible, and that continues to be a focus.
Also plants all the flowers.
Yes,
Yeah.
flowers and yeah, and of course, the wave, all the stuff you've been hearing about the past several meetings from the wayfinding, all the work that Regan's been leading to be prepared for new visitors which we've already been seeing.
Yep. Yeah, so that's great segue into that work in progress with wayfinding. We're gonna be repaving the 14th Street parking lot. Summertime slow. Again, you're gonna hear about this in a few minutes. So we're taking that as an opportunity to repave that lot, kind of repave and restripe. So it's gonna look a lot better and also be a lot easier on your suspension. And then the Roots Music Festival, as we continue to activate more and more spaces up at the Hill, and then also looking at the 14th Street lot as an activation itself. Yeah.
Question, who pays for the repaving of the lot? Is that part of this budget? Is that part of the new 93K for this year?
93K, I'm not sure exactly which number that was.
It's on that.
Oh, the difference in.
Yeah.
So we can, it's not.
Yeah.
The 14th Street lot, so the Hill has funded a facilities repair and renovation savings account, if you will. So each year, as part of the transfers that you see in the budget, they transfer it's like $9,200 a year to basically, like I said, put a savings away for managing its assets. It only has one. So, and it actually does have one pay station on that lot as well. So it does actually fund for that as well. So if that pay station ever needed to be replaced, they're like, I think 30K, they're very expensive. We have that as well. So we have some savings that we put aside that we contribute to each year to help fund these types of things. And that's where that money's coming from. Yep. So the budget process. So we're really in that department budget development phase there at the bottom of the circle. So the commission and council priority setting, with the letters to council that commissioners put together, conversations that we've had with you ongoing, those are the types of things that we collect kind of late in 23 or early in 24. We start to develop that into how we would do a work plan. So how we not just resource it financially, but from a staffing perspective. And then we start looking from that financial perspective is what does it look like we could actually fund? So we're kind of all through all those. We're in that department budget development. And then that is now starting to roll up into the entire citywide budget development. So we're kind of in that transition. And then come October, well, I guess technically September, during council study session will be when the public has a first look at the citywide budget. And then the public hearing during first reading and second reading is in October, and that's when the public will actually be able to come in and have some input into the budget for some suggestions, questions.
And through that process, there are a number of memos are prepared by the finance department, and we contribute to those memos, providing feedback that we've heard from the commissions that we work with.
Exactly.
Relative to the funds that we manage.
Yep, so that suggested language at the end would be something that we would be including into that memo. And any other input you all have today as well. So these are the funds that we operate out of. We kind of broke it down into district, city, and other. The new arts, culture, and heritage fell into the city bucket, and that's mainly because it's a city sales tax, so it's across the entire city within city limits. But it is dedicated specifically to arts, culture, and heritage. That is our newest fund this year. We've talked a little bit about that. Then, of course, we have our district funds. We do have some general fund support. UCAMC gets actually a general fund transfer. And then we do have some other funds such as ARPA, which we're still utilizing, some to this day. And then we have the CCRS funding as well, that 1% minus the 10%, trying to think of the calculations here and how they did it. Basically, it's 1% of the sales tax from CCRS goes to arts. So there's also that funding as well. And then we have different types of revenues and expenses. Expenses are pretty self-explanatory. The only exception to this is we do not currently have any debt. So we are debt-free in community vitality. So not just UCAMC, but all of our funds are debt-free as of right now. That could change, but we don't have any plans for that. On the revenue side, all those revenues are pretty much the same with the addition of the now sales tax revenue that we will be bringing in. So this is our proposed budget across the entire department. So this does include funding from UGID. And I will get into the slide that does break out UGID specifically. The biggest change here, why you see a 33% increase, is really our capital program. So I'll touch on the capital program here in the next slide. But that's going to be the biggest. And then there's also the addition of the Arts, Cultural, and Heritage Fund as well. That's also a big driver to our budget expanding. I will note on the internal services, there's a 21% increase there. That is based on new calculations that Central Finance did. That is our cost allocations. So paying for our attorneys, paying for our communications staff, our IT related types things, those are all kind of included in that internal services. So seeing how we operate out of so many different funding sources that aren't the general fund, we have to contribute back to the general fund for those general fund provided services. So that calculation is done every 2 years, and this year we saw a pretty big increase. Go ahead.
The numbers are different.
Thank you for catching that, Danica. Yes, the presentation that you see on the screen are the correct numbers, and I apologize. That was out of my control to be able to do that. So that's some of the reasons why we see some of those changes there. But I did update the percent changes, and then the 2025 proposed column is now correct. So there were a few things that Central Finance did post the creation of this. I thought I was running really late in producing this presentation, because I wasn't running late enough. So there were a few changes compared to the packet. So I do apologize for that. So this is UGID's budget, and there are a few changes here as well. Yep. No, actually, no, I take that back. There were not any changes to UGID. I take that back. So some significant things to notice here is, one, on the revenue side, our parking revenues are just not keeping pace. That 59,000 comes more from an analysis of actuals rather than an analysis of what we've been budgeting. So we did want to make it more right-sized for the type of money that we're actually bringing in for parking. I believe it was like 62,000 in 2023. So just given the changes now. Good news is we're being very conservative on the revenue side, so worst case scenario, it's gonna come in better. But we would rather be more conservative and err on the side of caution rather than be aggressive and then also increase our expenses. So that's kind of where we are with revenues. Investment earnings, however, those have continued to outperform what we've budgeted based upon the balance of the fund. Because we sold the Pleasant Street lot, we brought in so much revenue from that, and it's just been sitting in fund balance, it's actually earning a healthy amount of revenue. So that's a good side. The downside is we have yet to really identify a great big capital investment that would then use that money that we have from the Pleasant Street lot. Of course, that goes back to the ULI TAP report, and then what we could actually do with the amount of money that we do have. On the expense side, again, the internal services, that's the biggest one there, with the exception of capital. You can see capital actually decreased by about $1 million. We originally proposed I think it was $2 million in 2025 to redevelop the 14th Street parking lot. We don't really have development plans in mind or redevelopment plans in mind. And we want to be able to use that money rather than earmark it for something we don't have really robust plans for. We would like to reinvest it back into the district, which I will get to here in a little bit, and use it to bolster some additional funding that we're asking for out of the general fund to kind of review the streetscapes within UG.
Question about the internal services, is the proportion we're seeing in an increase here similar to what other districts are seeing? Is it proportional or is it?
It is.
Based on some other?
Actually, UGIT is probably one of the lower of all of them. It kind of has to do with the number of rough FTEs. And UGIT doesn't have as many FTEs as say KGIT. I mean, and when I say FTEs, it's like a portion of staff salary is associated with UGIT. And UGIT is a pretty low FTE count. So it didn't have as big of an increase, say, as like KGIT, for instance. It is still significant. It is unfortunately more than the property tax that we collect up in UGIT, which is kind of sad. But that to answer your question is we saw that pretty much across the board with not just district funds, but any fund that is not the general fund has to pay these internal service fees. So think Parks and Rec, Open Space and Mountain Parks, any dedicated fund that is not the general fund has to pay into the internal services. And they all saw the same substantial increase. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the 2024 approved. Right here, the 526,737
Correct.
is the same number that's on the budget. 526,737. They're broken out different categories. So if you look at that budget page, this page here.
On the fund financials?
Yeah, it shows like a parking maintenance of 203K.
Yep, so that is broken out by our program areas, which is how we report the budget in our budget book.
Yep.
This is by expense type category. So it is broken out a little bit differently. So within that parking maintenance, that will have personnel and operating.
I see.
Where this is breaking it out. And I'm totally happy to do it by program, but it seems how this gets published in the budget book, that's how we follow suit with the program.
No, that's fine. Now, I'm just trying to, so the personnel operating transfers have been reclassified in this other document by the program area.
Correct.
Where they work.
It's correct. Yeah, so the fund financial outlook that you have there, for instance, like the admin would have personnel and operating budget, maintenance, personnel and operating, and then I believe there is I think it's called transfers and cost allocations, and then there is your capital. And there's actually in that one, there is now a special events line item, which we can talk about as well. I believe I have a slide on that talking about some of the key enhancements and budget changes, which is new for UJ. Yes.
And then just since we're on it, adopted, then went from 15 to 93. in the revised. What's?
Yes, okay,
How do we get from the
15,000 to 93,000 in capital. So what that is, the revised budget is any money that was encumbered, officially earmarked, set aside for a specific project or contractor, and it rolls over into the next year. So the reason why 2024 has so many revisions to it is because any unspent money from 2023 that was earmarked and encumbered automatically rolls over into 2024, bolstering the 2024 budget so that we can pay for expenses that really would have been in 23, but due to timing or payment timing or the completion of projects or those types of things, that's why we have those revisions in our budgets.
Gotcha. So the actual for 2023 is with that 37, and the capital improvement is probably lower than what was budgeted originally.
Correct, that's correct. Yeah, it's one of those things that would be nice, we could start sharing as budget to actuals. So how much was our revised budget in 2023, and then how much did we actually spend in 2023? And that's becoming a little bit more common practice throughout public reporting and government reporting, because it does tell a full story. We say we're gonna spend $813,000 in 2025. It would be great if we spend $813,000 in 2025. But sometimes spending money's hard. So that's why we have budget revisions, is we may not spend all 813, we may have programmed all that money in 2025, but we couldn't get everything done in 25, so it rolls into 26, then bolstering 26. Great questions. Someone's reading the documents. So summary of 2025 budget changes. This year was a big focus from city management to do realignments. So basically going back to that whole concept of budget to actuals. If you're not spending all of your budget in program A and program B is spending more than it has, let's take some money from program A and put it into program B. That's the concept in a nutshell. So that was strongly encouraged last year and this year as well. So we really took a deep dive and looked at our budget and said, where are we saving money from the budget that we need to spend money elsewhere? And a big portion of it was an EcoPass. We've traditionally budgeted, and not so much so for UGID, but we've traditionally budgeted a lot for EcoPass and not had the expenses that we expect. Ridership is down, there's just not as many people taking the buses, those types of things. But we have noticed that we do need to support more and more maintenance operations. We have more and more like tree grades and planting the flowers and tree, well, streetlights aren't us, but those types of things. We found that we really needed to increase maintenance operations. So we did pull some money from EcoPass savings into maintenance. From Cage's perspective, and a little bit from UGID's perspective, we did not decrease the general fund transfer in UGID. We did, however, in CAGID, because we are increasing the amount of credit card processing fees that the general fund will be paying. So we kind of did a rob Peter to pay Paul's concept there with CAGID and the general fund. And that's mainly because the majority of our products that we now sell directly to our customers are general fund products. Think the NPP parking permit program, meters and hood dashes. These are all things that create general fund revenue. So therefore, the general fund is having to pay those credit card revenue fees. Whereas before we moved to gateless, we sold everything for all of our products directly to consumers. So that's why CAGID, because we were selling long-term permits in our garages. That's now handled through a third party, so we don't have those credit card processing fees anymore. The enhancements, so we are again asking for the ambassador program. It is still considered a pilot program, so we are asking for continuation of that program. So that's for downtown and the Hill. We're trying to expand and continue outdoor dining. Again, it was a pilot program, so we're really trying to bolster that. So creating some funding to produce infrastructure purchases, so that as people apply for the outdoor dining program, if they decide to use city-owned infrastructure, we have infrastructure available then for them to purchase. Of course, they do have the option to purchase their own infrastructure. It's a little bit different. It does have the same standards and does meet those standards, but we have found that through our permitting process that some do like to have city-provided infrastructure. That is part of the cost of getting that permit and that application for outdoor dining. It does help us compensate and put into that savings account that I was talking about to replace these types of things. We are planning an EcoPass expansion to part-time employees as well. So I know you're probably thinking, you just shifted a bunch of EcoPass savings over into maintenance. So we didn't shift all the EcoPass savings over into maintenance. We did leave enough in there that we could expand it to part-time employees so that more and more people, so hopefully that whole concept, especially on the Hill, getting people out of cars, reducing the amount of cars that are taking up parking spaces for customers and consumers. We really want to get more and more people in the district without having to bring their own car. If they do have to bring their own car, hopefully the presentation after Matt's presentation will answer some of those questions. We have big enhancement for the arts and cultures. We have kind of a gap year in 2025. So the cultural plan expires in 2024. So we don't really have that guiding light, so to speak, that we had for the grants and the general operating support and those types of things in 2025. And we didn't feel like it would be appropriate to rush through a cultural plan and try to get something set up by July budget submission for 2025. So we're in the process now of creating that cultural plan update. But in doing so, we wanted to make sure that we still provided enough funding for programs in 2025. So that's what that gap year is there. Capital highlights. So I mentioned this a little bit, is that we've really a big capital project for us next year. We're hoping, if we get approval for it, is really focusing on streetscape renovations and really revitalizing a lot of the right of ways and the streetscape. So think trees, think the tree grates, think Broadway median, think any sort of failing curbs, those types of things. Transit stop improvements. So really trying to increase a lot of that with so many more people coming up onto the Hill. We really want to present it as like, this is a beautiful part of Boulder, love Boulder, come back to Boulder, spend money in Boulder. So we're going to be asking for people to come up now to like the Hill Hotel, the Moxie, and then also the conference center. We really want to put our money where our mouth is and make those investments there. So we, as community vitality and also with transportation, recognize that, and we're asking for some funding from the general fund, in addition to some support from YouTube. Real quick, couple other things. CMGC contract manager, general contractor, construction manager, general contractor projects. So we're basically doing like a top to bottom renovation of our garages starting in 2025. We'll do it per garage per year, so we're not closing down massive amounts of garages and parking spaces in downtown. Not a huge impact for the Hill, but certainly something to just be thinking about in the area. We're also looking at doing some security enhancements within our garages. So think lighting, think cell phone connectivity in our basements, think fire department, police radios in our basements. And then also, security cameras, anything we can do to help encourage a little bit safer experience in our garages. And then also 1% for public art on capital projects. We're always trying to find ways that we can incorporate art more and more into our large capital projects. So these are the highlights I was mentioning. Going back to that, this is directly from the city manager's office. We are incredibly constrained in our ability to take on new initiatives and positions. Hence the reemphasis on realignments and really focusing on what can we do with what we have. We're really dedicating staff time to really looking at those types of things. Heavy expansion on the capital programs. We are looking on an enhancement on business and employee support within our districts and how we can use current funding to really help bolster that. So whether that's welcome packages to welcome to the district, here's some benefits you receive as a new business, those types of things. Or even, here's some contacts for the police for how you get a hold of like complaints, those types. So really synthesizing a lot of information that may take a lot of research for business owners or for employees and putting it into a packet that's really nice for them to digest. So some programs we're thinking about, nothing's really set in stone yet, but we certainly want to put the funding there. I will say there are some headwinds up ahead in terms of funding. So if you're paying attention to what's on the ballot this year, there is one specific property tax ballot initiative that we will be voting on this year. And it would put a 4% cap on revenue growth, starting, I believe, in 2025. So 2026 is when we would see the financial impact. But it basically you can think of it as like Tabor 2.0. Anytime revenue goes over 4% from previous year, the voters would have to approve the district to retain that 4% increase. So why that matters so much for UGID, think Moxie, think its property tax valuation. 4% on $39,000 is not that much, right? So if we go up $3,500, which I'm going to talk about here in just a minute, from the Hill Hotel, from the Moxie, that's over 4%. So if that ballot initiative did pass, then we would have to ask voters to retain that. So just some things to be thinking about and headwinds that may come up for funding. So of course, property tax is not the only source of revenue for UGID, but it is kind of the intent of the district is property owners decided to tax themselves in order to provide these services to the property owners. So if we're having any sort of property tax cap, then it kind of, again, just kind of keeps cutting at that salt. Here's our capital improvement program. These numbers may look a little bit different. Nope. There are some changes to this. The 1% for public art, those calculations are a little bit different now, but everything else is going forward. So you'll see there, we're hoping, this is on hope, to get 1.7, little over $1.7 million for the Hill streetscape renovations. So we really want to spend some time and some money, not just with the wayfinding work, but also in making it a very nice and attractive location.
And 250K of that is UGID.
250K that is UGID. That is correct.
And how does that so give towards the mouth from the city's perspective, but how do they calculate, what percentage is paid by the district and what percentage is paid by the city?
So we CD looked at the health of UGID and looked at what could be potential upcoming costs for UGID from a large capital investment standpoint. And we felt comfortable with $250,000. We really didn't want to push UGID beyond that because there may be large capital investments. So that's kind of where that number came in. Yeah, it's less the percentage, more what can UGID afford and pay for without running itself down to a point where it would no longer have the possibility to do a large capital investment. Questions and feedback?
There you go. I guess the streetscape renovations is that just their actual plans or that are detailed or, so that we can get a sense of what those might be or is
That will be part of it. Part of it is just repairing the irrigation in the existing medians, so trying to get the existing infrastructure back to a state of disrepair. But the $1.7 million, we are anticipating that we want to use some of that to conceptualize maybe some broader transformation that some of it can be implemented now and some of it further down the road if it's what gathers steam.
Yeah, transportation has looked at the Broadway median for a while now, and a good portion of this is transportation's request of needing some extra funding from the general fund to do the Broadway median. So Broadway median is.
It's out, see what it is.
Yeah.
And irrigation is very expensive, so you're spending all the money on things you won't see.
Right, and they are starting to think about how do we plant this without irrigation, right? So what are some of the species that we can select that help us be more resilient in terms of drought and be more native and more pollinators and those types of things. All while also, how do we also make it look nice and attractive so it doesn't look like a field down median snow.
And one last question, then just going back to the apportionment issue or whatever that, so if something like this were happening in downtown, There would be money. Downtown partnership or what Cajun did, the Cajun would contribute money, and again, same kind of process, it's just sort of determining what.
Yeah, so you mentioned that, and there is that. So the Pearl Street refresh in 2026, a portion of that is coming from CCRS, so that dedicated sales tax for capital. And Cajun is investing $2 million. So you actually don't see the CCRS portion here. This is just CD's portion. But Cajun is putting in $2 million. So yes, proportionately, Cajun has a very different revenue source. They have 5 garage assets, surface lots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they have a little bit more flexibility in how much they can help produce funding. That said, with the renovations that we want to do in the garages that are very much needed, we don't want to spend so much so that we then take away from its ability to just maintain its own assets. So very similar concept like we did with Eugene. We have assets that we need to maintain. We have capital investments that we need to make. What could Cajun afford while still being able to maintain a fund balance that's healthy enough to A, last throughout its lifetime, but also B, produce enough capital investments that these assets maintain at a level that's high enough for providing a good service for the community.
Great, thanks so much.
How much of the 1.7 is specifically earmarked by forestry and transportation for the improvements you're talking about?
455,000.
So the remainder of that would be sort of extra to be able to try to do other things.
Exactly.
And there's the chance, because you were talking about earlier, you can budget 1.7 in 2025. Whether it's spent in 2025 is another thing.
The very first thing is whether or not it gets approved in 2020.
Well, sure. If it gets approved, though,
Sure.
there is a chance that by the time the plans and everything come together, that actually starts rolling into a future year.
Well, my hope is that by the time we understand what's kind of been approved, if you will, technically we don't have approval until like end of October this year, right? But we'll have a good sense. So we're gonna start doing the planning now, because we really want to start hitting the ground hard, right? That's the biggest thing we've noticed is we're planning for 2025 right now from a budgetary perspective. We also need to be planning from a what are we actually doing perspective as well. But it's the chicken and the egg, right? Do you make the plans and spend all the money making all these nice plans and then ask for the money? Or do you ask for the money and then make plans, right? So it's this delicate balance of staff time and resources, not just financially, but how do we really get ourselves in a position that when we're ready to pivot and punt, we're capable of doing so. So we transportation really has those plans fleshed out for Broadway Media. So I think they would be ready to jump on that pretty soon, 2025. And I'm speaking on their behalf. So if transportation is listening, maybe they'll say something. But in terms of the other things and the other beautifications, there's a lot of things that we can do that could happen relatively quickly. Think trees and tree grades, signage, bus stop, transit stops, those types of things that we can do probably pretty quickly within a year for 2025. We would not spend all of that money in 1 year. I don't think it would happen. Maybe we get really lucky. We have the flexibility to be able to do that. But just knowing what happens with things change, council priorities change, those types of things. We always want to be aware and give some flexibility for some of that dynamic. But yeah, that's the intent is to get all of it done in 2025, whether or not that would actually happen, may not. But being as it's capital in nature, it does have that different color, so it has the rollover to be used for next year. Unlike our operating budget, which has to be reappropriated if we need it.
Any questions? Just a comment to make. And
Yes.
It's a recurring theme for this commission. When you look at the district fund and you look at what our reserve is, the fund balance after reserves as we reach 2030, we're really facing some headwinds there. And if what we're seeing is that we may not be able to diversify our portfolio through property tax revenue, we've really got some work to do. We really got to figure out what we're going to do to generate some sort of funding for this district. in order to just keep the lights on. So saying this out loud, we all know this is a recurring theme that I've heard a couple of times now in the last few years, but it seems concerning to me. Despite that, I generally support the idea of making capital expenditure a priority and doing those things because the district needs it desperately. So it's contradiction there, but yeah, let's spend money and hope that somehow we can come up with some planning to figure out what we're gonna do to shore up these balances.
You know, I'll pile onto that and just say, well, first, I want to thank you for that, really good presentation.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, thanks for all that, really good. But I think people are thinking about this, but I want to just, you know, I know that, is it the downtown renewal comes up in 2030, is that right?
Renewal of,
Is it for?
the DB, the bid
Bid
renewal.
renewal, and is there, you know, if there may be synergies with,
So we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We have Matt Jazansky here for our next agenda item. Once we've maybe gotten a motion approved in support of the draft budget, then we can start getting into some of that work that's doing that forward thinking around all of the districts that we manage and exploration of possibilities to pivot to possibly
that would
include-
address somewhat this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So that's next on your agenda.
I move to approve the 2024 community vitality proposed budget, including 2024 to 2029.
Sorry. 2025. I don't know how that got.
I'm having a bad That's what it says.
That's what it says.
All right. I recommend approval of the 2024 community vitality proposed budget. Commission recommends approval of the 2025 community vitality proposed budget, including 2025 to 2030 capital improvement.
Second that, any discussion? Seeing none, I'm gonna call a vote. All those in favor of the motion on the table? Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thanks again.
Thank you for the presentation. It's very thorough.
My pleasure.
Thank you, and we'll keep you posted on how the budget continues to develop as it goes through the whole citywide process. So more to come at our committee. So thank you so much for all your hard work, and Chris, you as well. You did it.
Thank you. He's the doer of things, so.
Next up, we have Matt Jazansky to provide an update on where we're at with the district outlook work. This is part of the council priority around commercial area connections and quality of life improvements. And so Matt is our project manager, of course, with Megan and his team. Matt's team, but you know, anyhow, you know what I mean. Working on developing a scope. So we don't have a big item for you today, but just want to keep you up to speed on where this work is at, because you were pointing to it in your comments around. Are you, Matt?
Thanks. Yeah, and it'll be really quick, but thanks for the great segues into the things that we need to talk about the future of the fund and our ability to react to long-term planning. What we need is vision, and so that's what this is really about. So the district outlook analysis, as I said, is going to be establishing the community vision, working on the long-term tools that you and city council's board of directors need to deploy in order to achieve the vision. And so a lot of the tweaks, a lot of the long-term capital and the planning is going to be a part of that. So my very brief update is that work continues on this. We have, since the last meeting, had a couple of changes in the timeline. We hope to go out onto the streets for an RFP for a consultant in the coming weeks. But our real deadline is a September 19th city council meeting, and be around that time that public engagement will start. So between now and the next time we meet, we hope that we have a couple of advancing steps on that. But really what we'll see as far as the actual visible part of the work will happen late September and then continue through about that same time. Anything else to?
Sure, just to point to what you all were alluding to, the realm of possibility that we want to consider for UGID as part of a bigger process would include things like, do we want to pursue debrucing the existing property tax? Do we want to dissolve the GID altogether and convert it into a business improvement district that the Downtown Boulder Partnership takes over? Those are all the concepts that are in the realm of possibility in this conversation that we want to have with you all, with other stakeholders, with City Council as the board of directors of the UGID. So just want you to know that we are certainly contemplating all these things and going to be having a lot of stakeholder interviews and engagement to form preferred recommendation of what the next steps are to look forward to have a better fund health or a better, more promising long-term plan for what do we do with the assets that we manage and where we're going next. So that's included in this work. And so we're.
Is there, I'm assuming it's the staff memo and the presentation, but City Council's got so many moving parts and things to think about as they think about these types of issues. I guess, is there anything we can do to emphasize the council sort of this somewhat dire situation that we may be facing in the next number of years? Is that largely just going to be through your briefing process to council, or is there anything that if there's anything that this commission can do to emphasize that, let us know, whether it's a resolution, whether it's something else. I mean, I think we can move that.
I think that there will be opportunities later on down the process. Our first touch with council of the study session is to just daylight some of these issues. You all, as well as BJED, have been raising some of the challenges in the annual letters to council. So I don't know that they're completely naive to the challenges. It's just not rising to the top. With the exception of this whole connection from downtown to University Hill. So they are really focused on that. And we're tacking on to that interest to say, yes, we want to work on these things and we want to figure out a way to implement and fund whatever it is that we're going to do to solve that particular priority. But at the same time, we need to have this broader conversation. And so we're going to use the study session in September to daylight the challenges with how the districts are currently being managed and include that in the narrative. So there will be future meetings further on down the road because we're planning an 18-month process. So through this 18-month process, there are going to be some opportunities for you all to pass some recommendations, resolutions saying this is the direction that UCAMC advises council to go as the board of directors of UGID for where we head next. And so that will certainly provide you with those opportunities to have a formal commitment toward a specific direction.
If I can add on to that, and to your point, it's like in this process, we'll be updating you regularly in these meetings, that you'll be representing the group in some deeper consultations. And so making sure that the recommendations in this document lead us in the right direction and then endorsing it at the end, I think will be the biggest message.
So the engagement of this commission will begin after the study session in September and then proceed for a period of 18 months. Right?
There will be a number of touches along the way.
Got it. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right. The next item from staff, it shows Elliot Levante talk about revenue optimization. I think okay, Sam from So this is a result of the motion from your last meeting where there was a request for staff to explore possible event pricing for the 14th Street lot. So the team has done some work and analysis since they want to share some information with you all today. We have some recommendations of where we think we should probably go if we want to try to drum up more revenue. But with that, I will hand it over to Sam.
Hi.
Do we introduce you?
Do you want
Have you
to?
met the commission?
I've met the commission. I'm Samantha Bromberg. I'm a senior project manager. I work more on the parking and access side of things. So I've come a couple of times, but I may not be a familiar face, which is fine. So Elliot and I have done some work looking at revenue optimization for the 14th Street lot. So little context, I'm sure you know where it is, but it's the big red box there down the bottom. Key statistics, right now, the charge for the lot is $1.50 per hour. There's a 4-hour maximum. There's 50 spaces and most stays are around 1 hour. Some utilization is down below, so that's sort of like capacity over time. That's over the course of an entire calendar year, so it's very much like a macro view. You can see that it's most utilized during the school year, no surprises there. It's fairly underutilized outside of the school year. And during the school year, it's, peak occupancy is happening around midday. Compliance with parking regulations has been found to be an issue in this area occasionally. I'm sure that's not a surprise. All right, so this is a look at 2023 compared to 2022. On the left, there's a heat map based on the distribution of the duration of stays. So that's where you can see that most stays fall within that 1 hour time period. Revenue has actually gone down year over year between 2022 and 2023 for the lot. And there's some information about revenue per transaction and occupancy in this map.
I want to note, and sorry I didn't catch this earlier, we closed the lot for a period of time in 2023, we'll have the lot and leased it out to the adjacent construction projects. And so that might be artificially low because we did get like $20,000 from.
They owe us $20,000.
So did they not pay us?
I don't know. If they have, that's good because.
They also damaged the lot in a way that we were not anticipating, so we were getting ready to but anyway, that's it. Anyhow, I just wanted,
Thanks for bringing that up.
there is a reason why we maybe had a loss in park revenue, but we made up for it in other ways.
Good.
Right, and then this is just looking specifically at the summer months when the lot is least utilized. And this is very similar, like year over year numbers. Did the lease happen during the
It happened in
summer?
the summer.
Okay, well
In
then,
the summer into the early fall.
But the reason we lease it is because it's never fully licensed.
great, little additional context, wayfinding signage, since this picture's been taken, that sign's been removed because you can't really read it. But we did have some wayfinding signage around the district to kind of guide parkers to the lots. Previously it was Pleasant and 14. But that kind of represents an opportunity, which I'll get into later. Customer feedback, I mean, everyone struggles to find parking on the hill. Residents, businesses and employees and I think a lot of folks are unaware of the location of the 14th Street lot because it's kind of in a strange place. It is a little bit hard to find into it. Little bit of market research, this might be new information hopefully. So the 14th Street lot is in purple, and then I've circled some of the other lots that you can park at in red. So on the bottom left, that's the Grace Lutheran Church. They do offer permits for this lot. They cost around $80 per month. Then CU lot 65 up at the very top, that's hourly, it's $2 during peak and $1 during off-peak times. That's consistent with the parking across the entire CU ecosystem, it's all the same pricing. And they do have a commuter permit lot just to the south of that, which is around $60 a month for a permit.
Question on that, do they only sell to CU affiliates or who?
I believe they only sell to students and faculty. But I'm not 100% certain, so are any of these, they sold out or their permits available? Typically CU sells out a lot of their permits. I haven't checked for the specific commuter lot that's off campus. But I have heard that it is very competitive to get permits on CU.
I can confirm that.
Yes. Anecdotally, at least our team hears
Well, and
that.
along those lines, what we didn't include in here is we have 50 permits that CU has made available in the Grandview area to University Hill employees. So non-CU affiliates are eligible for permits in the Grandview area. There is quite possible, especially if these lot 64 permits are underutilized, that we might be able to open up some of those to University Hill employees as well.
We can certainly have that conversation. CU also offers day passes for their surface lots on campus that are $10 per day, so. Some of the opportunities that we could explore, parking permits, is monthly permits could be sold in limited numbers, not 50. We don't need to have it be a permit only lot, but we could sell some permits for that lot, which would create a more consistent revenue throughout the entire year, especially summer months when it's less utilized. And it would be great for employees who need to park for longer than 4 hours. We could consider revising the time limits for the pricing of the lot. Right now it's 4 hours, which is great for CU students who are in commuting if they don't have a commuter permit. If we reduced it to say 2 hours, that might discourage CU students, but encourage more of like the patrons of the Hill and a little bit more turnover, so it's something to consider. And then the pricing as well, this could qualify for performance-based pricing, so we could raise that to $2, which would be a little bit more on par with what CU is charging for a good part of the year. Improve wayfinding, so that people can actually find the 14th Street lot. And then event pricing is another thing that I know that this commission has expressed interest in that could be explored. And we got a little bit more information on that shortly. So we did look into the special events, the possibility of it. CU campus, they really don't have like shopping or business district, right? They really only have like people coming for school and then the people coming for events. And so that's kind of one of the drawbacks to that event pricing is that if you're filling up a lot with people who are coming for an event, then there's no spaces for the people who are coming to shop. And so that's something that could be good to think about. There is a cost to implementing it. There's additional concerns around having event pricing. Tailgating concerns. It's a little bit further for people to walk to the events than on campus. And maybe we would make $12,000 a year if we charged $20 per vehicle for all 50 spaces. So this was kind of what we.
Yeah, I would note that is a very optimistic calculation. We don't charge for parking on weekends at the 14th Street lot. We did not see any incremental increase in parking activity. Charge on Saturdays.
We do charge on Saturdays, so
So-
it's Monday through Saturday.
And for a 4-hour time period, $1.50 per hour, not a high rate compared to what CU charges. Not a meaningful increase in utilization on big special event days currently in this lot. We have marketed it as a great place to park for an event. But we aren't seeing folks currently feeling like they're getting a great deal at this lot when there have been big events going on.
But is there a 4-hour maximum?
Yeah,
Correct.
that's why
You have that
you're not
fine.
gonna park.
I would never park my car
It's
somewhere,
just
if I was going to a football game.
Parking tickets.
Like, cause those when I'm gonna get back,
Yeah.
right?
Sure, well, it's 4 hours until 7 p.m. So if it's an evening game and then you're depending on the time of the game.
Or a concert, I mean, I just think you're gonna go to dinner and a concert, you might leave your car there, like, I
Yeah.
wonder if you could change it. On those days, cause I wouldn't park there if there was a 4-hour limit, I might get towed.
At the same, we started filling up for a desk at around 3 o'clock. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you got busier and then that show wasn't out until midnight.
Yeah.
So that's
I mean,
7 hours
that's-
right there from 5 o'clock.
Well, but after 7,
It's free.
it's free. So if you
That's
park
4
at 3, you pay for your 4 hours.
Do people know that?
It's not publicized. But
Well,
No,
that
it's on the sign.
So on the front, we have a
4 hour
color
access.
map where you can actually click and see the regulations, the timing and pricing online, so.
And could you change that though for special events?
That's something we could look into if that was a desire, is changing like the time limits specifically for special events days. It does make it a little bit, it would be complicated to like go down and like change the signage for those days, you would need extra staffing, so there's some costs associated with like, you know, how to market that, how to communicate that, and let people know that's an option, but it's on the, certainly not off the table. What we also looked at was these long-term parking permits. So the Pleasant Street model was that the parking permits were $210 per quarter, so somewhat similar to what CU is charging for their commuter lots. We offered 44 permits, and there were 62 spots in the lot, so we only sold about 70% of the spaces to those permits. So for the 14th Street lot, we could do something similar. If we sold 70% of the spaces, that would generate $28,000 a year at $200 a quarter. So a little bit greater revenue implications with the permits than with the event pricing, but there's not, you know, they're all options. Our recommendation is to start by introducing a number of long-term permit sales, a small number at first. We could explore dedicating those spaces to permit parking only, or we could explore whether that's necessary or feasible. We could also explore either reducing or increasing the time limit for the other spaces or raising the pricing to $2 an hour to match CU pricing. So these were some of the recommendations based on the research that we did. And okay. Oh, well, I already done. No. Well, my next thing is questions, so
have you talked to the Moxie about valet parking? Because they're buying spaces from CU and that project will be done. Talk to them.
I talked to them, but they haven't
They don't want
suggested
any
those spaces. Yeah, they haven't expressed any. I've been in their garage, it's currently still mostly underutilized, so I'm not sure.
Really?
whether- Yeah,
Surprised.
yeah, me too.
Well, they are supposedly gonna buy spaces. That was, if they needed them from CU in that garage.
Right.
Those will be expensive spaces, that garage will be up for a while, so I don't know. And the peak seems to work really well with like the summer and, you know, some of their synergy overnight. Like, so they, you know, the idea is that they have a
Right, and we
100%
would,
valet.
so we would treat the Moxie like any other business owner in the district, and so if they wanted to purchase, if we've not sold contract permits for this lot traditionally.
Oh, so
If we were to open up 35 permits,
Anyone could buy them.
anybody could buy them, including the Moxie or an individual, would not be restricted. As long as they're in the district, they'd be eligible to purchase, so certainly a possible customer.
No, I think it's important to know, typically when we sell permits for lots, especially lots that are shared between permits and people paying hourly parking, we don't guarantee that there's space, so.
Right, well, on Pleasant, didn't we have signs up for metered parking only? Pretty sure, right?
Thought so, yeah.
Yeah, so you had permit parking and then you had metered parking.
Right.
Which
We would certainly need to sign,
Right.
not necessarily for the summer, but if we were to sell permits in this lot for when CU is in session, there would need to be permit only.
As a business owner, you know, I think I carry 10 or 11 with the city right now, parking permits. And I'd gobble them up really quickly because it's rather close.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, and what does that come out to, $53 per permit a month? Is that correct? My math is right. That seems really cheap.
66 is really.
Right, yeah, it seems like we could cover about 100.
Well, so we always want to be cognizant though of forcing the market, right? We don't, as a government entity, we don't want to force the private sector to raise the rates. So we always have to be on par with market. We don't want to be driving the market.
Sure.
We also don't want to be undercutting the market either and taking advantage of, you know, hey, with cheap prices, bring in all the customers, right? So we kind of want to follow market trends. So yeah, we may be able to increase it. But at the same point, then we would be forcing other companies that then raise their rates, and then we get into this weird thing.
Who is that on the hill besides the church?
It's
These
CU,
are not-
Which is another Kelvin, that's.
Yeah, those are all government
So now we have government versus government.
and church.
And church.
Yeah, the great.
Separate church and state, so, but they're at $80.
Just about.
Just about, so they're just under 200 a quarter, but they sell them annually, so it's a little different.
I have several questions. And one that I'll start with, do we have any information about how many employees currently use the lot? How many actual workers for Hill businesses are using the lot? I don't know, there's an easy way of figuring that out. But to tell us,
I know, I'm at 0 right now,
so to tell us.
at least for my managers.
Well, your shift would have to be less than 4
Yeah,
hours.
looked into it, it's talking about 14th Street,
Yeah.
we didn't even know that you could get permits from there.
No, you can't, but you
Yeah.
can, but your employees could park there for 8 hours if they're.
4 hours.
I know, but
Correct,
if
yeah,
it wasn't
wait.
a 4-hour time limit, you could have there longer and that might change how people use the lot, is what I'm saying. An employee could use it from 9 to 5.
Yeah, I think generally, just from where I sit, my opinion is that like piloting a permit program could be really beneficial. Particularly if there's an appropriate amount of communication with Hill businesses, so that they know that this program is coming online. The next question that I have is an unknowable question, probably, but what is the demand for parking going to look like once the garage opens for the Limelight Hotel parking garage? Because that's a fairly large parking garage. Now, I know most of it is meant to backfill parking that was eliminated for CU when they built the hotel, and that was a lot of parking, and I work right there, I'll tell you, the parking has been atrocious, particularly during the school year. So understanding that relationship may also be helpful, but it may mean that we need to strike while the iron's hot now and get this lot activated prior to that one coming online, and getting permit holders and others aware that it is something that they could and should be using. It'll be more affordable than what CU's doing. I think I pay $70 a month. So, and I'm grandfathered in on some deals. I've worked for CU since 2006. So I'm imagining those parking permits are gonna be exceeding $100 a month. That's a guess.
Yeah, the city does have a performance-based pricing process downtown, so I think that what you're talking about is spot on, where we just need to be responsive to what is the need right now. And then as the environment changes around us, we start to adjust again, like our job as commission, as representatives of UGIN is to respond to what the community's needs are. So yeah, being as dynamic as possible.
Back to the recommendations in the price slide. The raising pricing to $2 an hour seems perfectly reasonable and probably exactly what the market will bear. I think that seems like a no-brainer in terms of recommendations.
Well, I mean, I think people also like parking in surface lots, so there's some advantage when I would much rather park at 14th Street than the garage, when that. But I do think the signage is really important. I mean, it'd just be nice if there's a nice big blue P sign, for parking,
Why didn't you guys park? Sorry, I was gonna face. Oh, yeah, no,
But it's-
blue is
but
for
it's-
private lots.
Sorry, okay.
Green is for.
Like, there's a lot of text on this, I don't know, I mean, when you're doing the wayfinding and this big project you're doing, I think that could be something fun to play around with, you know? Introducing the mural, I don't know, like making it more stand out. Because it is hard to.
Why would you want to do surface parking versus garage parking?
Garages.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering,
Yeah,
'cause I would rather
you're a big strong man.
take,
Women,
weather.
I don't know, women don't like garages, they're scary.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
And I like to be able to see my car and be able to see where I have to be, like, I'm getting kind of emotional about it, garages are scary.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Especially at night.
Do you feel the same way?
Well, it's just a very common sentiment.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people. See,
Yeah.
lighting and.
It's just, it's a known entity, like, you know what is happening, you can see what's coming. I've been trapped in garage too, trying to get out, like, it's, I don't know, it's just.
It's practically cliche of movies, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would all day long take a snowstorm. Or like a hot car.
Can we provide hail like blankets for college?
How about solar panels,
There you go, now you're thinking. Well, so I don't know if we need to do anything. Do you need something to take action on these recommendations is my first question. Can we just generally voice approval for these recommendations? And then I also just want to open it up to the commissioners, if there's anything missing from this that you want to make sure, because I know when we started with special event pricing, and somehow that might be an idea. I don't want to necessarily just dismiss that, but it does seem like there's been some good information provided to us here today that makes it seem like it's a mixed bag.
And might I offer that we could, the way that we could do both is if we were to eliminate the 4-hour limit and increase to $2 an hour, like let the market decide, and that if you leave your car for 5 hours.
Or 2
then-
days.
Right, well, that,
Sorry.
that's, but that's $10, which is what we would probably be talking about for events.
Yeah.
Permit anyway, so we could market it as a great place to park your car during an event in the summer. And because it doesn't have the 4-hour time limit, and we're pricing it in a way where we make a lot of money and people decide to do that, we're not eliminating the possibility for folks who have legitimate business on the hill, which is our number one priority of the folks who we're trying to serve are the employees and the customers who build businesses, making sure that they have access as well. So I feel like if we have your support in that, there are ways that we can still market event parking at this lot and try to drum up some revenue in that way without having to create a separate product that's like trying to get $10 the moment that somebody's shown up. Because there's some administrative burden on that as well. And so trying to get $10 from every single person that shows up. Which is
Question. I support that, and the only other thing I would add is that, obviously subject to whatever the city's policies are with respect to sort of meeting the market and whatnot. I mean, I would match CU on everything if you could, not just the hourly, but on the monthly, because I mean, even to get a CU permit, you've got to have you're a special person, right? And you can get it, I can't.
Right.
Yeah.
And so at a minimum, we should be collecting the same. I don't think we'll push CU to raise their rates.
I imagine they're sold out too. I would find out like what their wait list is.
Almost guarantee that they are.
The cost is around $60 a month. They'll go back to it, but
It's actually less.
That neighborhood's
Right now,
under so much parking pressure because they just took all those parking lots offline for the Athens Court development as well. So we have employees who we hired I have 2 employees on my staff who were hired 14 months ago, and they're still waiting for the opportunity to buy 14 months later. A lot of people don't stay in a job 14 months, and here they are still waiting for parking, and they're commuting from Bloomfield, like it's not like they live down the street. So they're having to go into the neighborhood and find spots in the neighborhood. It's untenable.
well, what about like the sororities and fraternities too? I mean, I think that side of the street is really close. None of those houses have very good parking.
Yeah.
I mean, and it would be, again, it's closer to where you live versus where you go to school. So I worked with Evans Fuller House, they're right there, they have like 2 parking spaces for 50.
well, and that's our other challenge, especially in the summertime, is we're competing with free parking. So
Yeah.
most of the street parking in the area surrounding the commercial district is free. And folks would much rather circle and look for a free spot than pay for space.
Walk a few
It's a lot harder to find a free spot when students are in town.
What we do downtown as well is the permits that we sell for the downtown garage lots are only for employees of a downtown business that is within the boundaries and cages. So that might make sense for you as well as say, we'll sell a limited number of permits, but only if you're an employee of the district. So it really benefits the district in that way.
Right. Ellie, you said 50 and you said 70.
I think mine is like, it's like $67.50.
Anyway, it's worth checking.
Yeah, it looks like, from the market research we did for that lot 64 for the permits, it's like $240 a semester. And of course, semesters don't go over the summer and fall, so $60 a month is all. So if we were to charge $200 a quarter is roughly $66.66 dollars a month. So it would actually be a little bit higher, but of course we would have full year access and it would be specific to UGIT employees or UGIT staff.
Trent, did you?
Yeah, I was just wondering from a permit perspective, are there weekday permit? Is that an option in the law like that, where you can?
It's not a product that we offer currently. broader conversation that we are having in our work is exploration of other types of products, especially as we are transitioning from our former point of sale system T2 to a new point of sale system called AIMS. It does have some more capabilities in dynamic products. We do see a lot of folks who are not coming Monday through Friday, right, like they used to. And so we are certainly investigating those types of products for our, garage type permits and other permits. So something for us to consider.
And I was, that it was just Monday through Friday, because I tried to rent an office in 3 different spaces and there was no parking, so I ended up not moving my business to there. Because there's literally nowhere, if you have 5 or 6 employees,
Right.
you can't do it, because your employees leave. Right, and so that the thought process there, and with knowing that there are a few offices up there that are unleased, that if maybe that would actually help the overall district missing the offices too, if there's a place to park. But people don't park there necessarily on weekends. Maybe if you're working at the same retail location, you would. But that would just be a way to maybe capture both.
And I think some of this really jives well with the district connections component. Is if we do remove barriers, so cars are one way to get to a district or anywhere, right? But there's a lot of other means of getting to districts. So if we can remove those barriers for those other means, if we can make it more attractive to take those other means, and hopefully it's kind of like we need to do this and that, right? So this is just one piece of the puzzle that'll help us meet that demand and provide that access. So that's something that we're constantly thinking about, and that's a lot of what Matt's work has been in. It's like, how do we have a lot of parking in downtown. How do we make it really easy for people to park in downtown and get to UJ, right? Like, John?
You get told.
If you want to be on your camp seat. Kidding. Joking.
But there are, I think, some real opportunities ahead of us that we could help bridge the gap, so to speak. So that we don't have to think about it as we need to put cars in UJ. It's like we need to put cars in UJ and we need to make it easier for cars who aren't going into UJ for the people to get into UJ as well. So I think there's some other investments that we can do. But yeah, you bring up a good point is right now, parking is kind of we're a society built on cars. So we have to remove every barrier possible for people who don't want to be in cars, or people who are on the fence of not being in a car, to make it so that they will make that change. And that's really where we should make our investments, in addition to, we're never going to get everybody, right? So we need to provide that. But there are a lot of people who
Be careful, this is a recorded meeting.
I bike from Longmont, so I'm different.
Does anyone, so like with the Boulder Auto, I know the valet works, that anyone can use the valet. Do people ever do that? Do you know? So, they're not staying at the hotel.
Right, I'm not sure.
Okay, I just feel like that is very interesting to me, that there will be dedicated staff moving cars around to be very efficient with cars, and like they can double park cars and. I don't know, it's just with the new hotel, like people like convenience as well, and so then you can park things much more efficiently when you have a staff person. And I don't know if Limelight will have the same kind of I'm assuming they'll have 24/7, so to me, that's a very interesting, like, how do you get people to like, oh, and then that they're paying $25 for that valet service, will easily pay $10 to park it in our law, right?
Right.
So I don't know, I think having that staffing of these hotels is something to just think about
Something that we can.
people moving.
Part of this whole thing is probably some marketing and outreach materials that, that folks have a perception that it's impossible to park on the hill, and so they're not gonna locate their businesses up there, when maybe there are actually options, they just don't know about them. And how do we make sure that they're aware?
Just for setting expectations, because on the surface, it seems very easy to implement something like this. But how long would it take, or is there any approval through city council that we would need in order to start issuing permits at a lot like this?
Just an information item, I'd say we'll do it as part of our annual update to council, and changes that we're making for pricing.
Any other
Might not be
thoughts?
overnight.
Pardon?
Might not be overnight, but
Next
We
week.
can start like next January, we could start with the pricing changes. Sorry.
That would work best for communications and make my financial life a lot easier. I'd appreciate it.
Well, and we may want to revisit this in a year. I think that would be the other thing I would point out is a lot of the things that you brought to the table, I think require some examination once we see more numbers come through and did we have an effect here? Is it the intended effect? What are we seeing from market forces elsewhere? That kind of thing. Probably makes sense for us to continue examining this. Any other concern? Yeah.
Yeah, if we could we see the numbers that you just showed up there, but 2 years prior? Like the last 3 years or whatnot?
The occupancy.
Just so that we don't
numbers.
have that summer stall for the construction.
Oh, the.
And just see, is it increasing, is it not? As a business owner on the same, our busiest time of the year is right now, all the way through moving wage. It's just kind of strange that.
And I need to note that the reason that we only lease half the lot, because traditionally during the summer, the lot is less than 3% utilized, so our goal was to both get revenue from Parkers in one half the lot and revenue from the developer on the other half of the lot. So we could certainly look
Yeah,
and
that's
see,
fine.
yeah, see if there was if we what the trends have been. For sure. Just remember.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah,
we can't go
right,
back to
yeah.
2020.
Yeah, maybe even before that. I don't
21
know.
is probably also wonky,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, well, and then,
But also the
or,
world changed around us, like we're seeing in downtown, where we're seeing that before COVID, some of our highest parking rates were during the week and 95, and now that's not the case, it's evenings and weekends, and so the world has changed in ways that we didn't expect.
and then before that, we had the Pleasant Street lot. Right, so anyhow,
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of variables at play in how this is, but I think, we certainly want to monitor. Worst case scenario, we sign some spaces as permit only. We don't sell permits. At the same time, we raise the rate to $2 per hour, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, I'm not parking there anymore. And then our revenues go down as a result of our tweaks as opposed to up. That's worst case scenario, and I doubt that's going to happen. But those are, that is in the realm of possibility.
It sounds like just in this room, there's enough demand for permits to fill this.
So I think we're gonna sell the permits, yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would say one thing we could do quickly, and government quickly, put up some signage.
That's what I just wrote down, because I'm wondering if we can incorporate it in wayfinding or.
Put up a couple
But-
more signs.
Green peas.
Green peas,
Yes.
not the fruit.
Shall we have a minute for parking?
What?
Do you have a minute for parking?
Yeah.
Sam, thank you for this work. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, that makes good research. I'll get this part too.
All right, that concludes matters from staff.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Moves to matters from commissioners. UCAMC bi-monthly meeting update. We had another successful bi-monthly meeting. Thank you for that. I thought it was very productive. I would like to continue this if you all are willing and able. Appreciate that. We missed you that day, but that's okay.
Bye.
You were on tap.
But we might not have been adequately communicated to you, so.
I'm having some calendar issues, to be quite honest. I remember I changed my email address and I think that's why I had the old invitation and got the wrong building, so I could have been gone, but when was the meeting?
It's about a month ago.
It was a half an hour meeting and we
I'm sorry, I'm really sorry.
No apologies necessary, and it's an informal meeting anyway, so. I'm trying to recall, Warren, I don't know if you have it offhand, who is on tap for the next one? Me and Trent?
I think it's me,
I thought I was, you mean August or?
because I thought we were doing it alphabetical, so I think I'm just ready with it. I thought so.
I wasn't at the meeting.
Yes. He
Can we
thinks that
go
he's
over the
involved.
logistics of this?
Well, because I get the invitation every time, so it's, I'm always showing up, but now I understand.
What
I
day?
have August 13th is Tom Jones.
Ted Jones. 15th, 1-5. And I think the program was June 11th. And it was at 1 p.m. And
June 11th?
June 11th, yeah. But here's the thing, I think Chris is right. I think the communication on this was not 100%. We're still kind of getting this figured out, so.
It's only the second time we've had one of these. And so these are off-cycle meetings that are, because there's only 2 commissioners present, it's not publicly noticed. It's an opportunity to do a more deep dive. It's kind of our third one because we had one, just the 3 of us at the sink a number of months
And it
ago.
was weird because I was scheduled first and then Danica came aboard and then we got switched.
Exactly.
So I think that's where it all went.
And then-
Want me to take the next?
That's okay.
So is it on
Okay.
the calendars?
There should be a calendar in this, yes.
So August 13th.
Yeah, but that's gonna be tell. You'll end up incorporating you in the
Cycle.
cycle. It'll happen next year. But don't worry about it.
So when's the next?
After that will be October,
Because I still have it here for September 10th.
that's right. So that's what we changed the meeting invite. And so maybe everyone didn't get the invite change.
I will ask the team to do a deep dive into the calendar, yeah.
I apologize that this part is weird, but we should.
You
figure that
should,
out.
you don't apologize.
Did you say October 8th?
I did not know what day.
Okay,
I
whatever.
remember something, I can tell you here.
Yeah, I did.
But I don't know what's it. Yeah, we'll see.
I also had me.
October 8th at 1 p.m.
Okay, that's the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The XSR one in September.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, now that I confused everyone with this.
That all sounds right to me.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, me, yeah.
It's interesting, you were all invited to the October 8th one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but we can't.
We can't have all of these.
Right, we just gotta tell.
We will do a cleanup on the invites position, only the chair plus one on each of these.
Situation.
Our apologies.
It's, I think the meeting, but it was really funny, I was on a meeting.
We are still in the meeting, and one last thing here, any other matters from the commissioners they want to bring up at this point?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the city. This whole crew that's in here. I haven't been here long, but I'm really seeing the quick development of things that are happening in a good way. So just want to say thanks to you all.
Yeah, including the meetings on Broadway. They're really good.
It's our friends in transportation, but
Yes, but it's the city and they listen to complaints and suggestions. Yeah.
No worries.
Don't worry.
Don't use your words. Pictures only. Anything else for the good of the order? Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana, were you gonna say
So I
something?
went to the, and tell her, building.
We are still recording, just so